My son didn't just take my money, he took my sense of who I was as a father. My name is Richard Hale, and for most of my life, I believed that if you gave everything to your child, they would grow into someone who understood sacrifice. I believed love, consistency, and hard work were enough. I believed that being present mattered more than being perfect. I raised my son Ethan after his mother passed away. There was no handbook for that, just long nights, early mornings, and a constant pressure to be everything at once. I worked overtime whenever I could get it. I learned how to cook badly and apologize well. I learned how to hide exhaustion so he wouldn't feel guilt for needing me. The house we lived in wasn't fancy, but it was solid. It had creaky stairs, a small backyard, and walls that held decades of memories. It was the last thing his mother and I built together, and after she was gone, it became the anchor of our lives. That house was safety. That house was home. Ethan grew up smart, charming, and restless. He always wanted more, faster, bigger dreams, shorter patience. I told myself that was ambition. I told myself it was normal. When he came to me and said he wanted to continue his education, I felt something close to relief. Finally, a direction. Finally, a future that made sense. He talked about programs, about opportunity, about not wanting to waste his life. He spoke with confidence, and I mistook that confidence for honesty. The night before everything unraveled, the kitchen was warm and quiet. Soup simmered on the stove. The clock ticked steadily, marking time I didn't realize was about to fracture. Ethan came through the door already irritated, already angry, like the world owed him something I was standing in the way of. He said I didn't believe in him. He said I was holding him back. He said if I loved him, I would prove it. Those words land differently when they come from your child. They don't sound manipulative. They sound like a challenge, like a test you're supposed to pass. The next morning, I sat across from a loan officer under harsh fluorescent lights. He warned me. He said mortgaging my home was a serious risk. I nodded, barely listening, because all I could see was Ethan as a boy, asking me to teach him how to ride a bike, trusting me to catch him when he wobbled. I signed the papers. $50,000, enough to change everything or destroy it. When I came home, the house felt wrong, too quiet, too empty. The soup sat cold on the stove, untouched. On the kitchen table was a note in Ethan's handwriting. Gone? Thanks. No explanation, no goodbye, no remorse. I called him until my voice went hoarse. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months. Every call went unanswered, every message disappeared into silence. His social media stayed active just enough to hurt. Smiling photos, sunglasses, a version of my son that felt staged and distant. I searched his old apartment. I went through boxes of childhood drawings, school awards, letters he wrote when he was young, promising to make me proud. I asked myself questions no parent wants to ask. Where did I fail? What did I miss? When did love turn into entitlement? Then one afternoon, sitting in a cafe I barely remember choosing, I overheard something that made my chest tighten. Someone said Ethan's name. Someone mentioned a luxury car. Someone laughed about parties. The truth didn't hit me all at once. It settled in slowly like a weight pressing down on my lungs. The money wasn't gone. It was being enjoyed. That was the moment something inside me shifted. I stopped waiting for my son to come back. I stopped hoping silence meant confusion instead of intention. I gathered my bank statements. I reread old messages. I stopped acting like a father begging for answers and started acting like a man who had been lied to. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a betrayal. And I was done pretending otherwise. I didn't recognize my life once I started paying attention. The house was the same, but it no longer felt like shelter. It felt like evidence. Every creak in the floorboards reminded me that I had signed those papers sitting at the same kitchen table. Every envelope from the bank felt heavier than the last. I stopped opening my mail quickly. I stopped sleeping through the night. I began organizing everything, bank statements first, then loan agreements, then text messages, emails, fragments of promises that once felt reassuring and now felt rehearsed. I highlighted dates. I circled amounts. I read his words slowly, noticing how carefully vague they were, how often he avoided specifics, how easily I had filled in the gaps for him. That was when I realized something painful. I hadn't trusted Ethan because of evidence. I had trusted him because I wanted to believe he was still the boy I raised. I contacted Daniel Brooks after a friend quietly suggested his name. She didn't say much, only that he handled difficult family cases and knew when to listen more than he spoke. We met in a small office downtown, the kind of place that felt intentionally calm, as if chaos was a frequent visitor there. I told Daniel everything, not just the facts, but the years, the late nights, the promises, the guilt I carried for working too much and still believing it wasn't enough. When I finished, I expected judgment. Instead, he said something that shifted the ground beneath me. You were emotionally leveraged. He explained how trust can be weaponized, especially within families, how fraud doesn't always look like theft at first. Sometimes it looks like hope. Sometimes it looks like love. He told me I had a case, but cases don't survive on feelings. They survive on proof. That night, Ethan called. Hearing his voice after months of silence didn't feel like relief. It felt invasive, like someone breaking into a locked room. I asked him directly about the money. I didn't soften my tone. I didn't dance around the truth. He laughed. He said the money was his. He said I gave it willingly. He said I was overreacting. Then I heard someone else laughing. Her name was Vanessa Cross. Once I noticed her, she appeared everywhere, in photos at clubs, in videos from rooftop parties, always dressed sharply, always smiling like consequences were for other people. And parked nearby in almost every post was a luxury electric car I knew exactly the cost of, my money. When word spread that I was asking questions, people reacted quickly. Some avoided me. Others whispered. A few said I was trying to ruin my own son's life. Vanessa confronted me outside a store one afternoon, her voice sharp and amused, telling me I should be ashamed of myself. But shame doesn't work when the truth is documented. Daniel traced spending patterns, transactions, club tabs, payments routed through accounts that matched dates from my loan disbursement. Every piece fit too perfectly to deny. What I felt emotionally was now supported legally. Then I saw it. A post online announcing a massive party, publicly tagged, location shared. Daniel didn't hesitate. "If you want the truth to survive," he said, "it has to be seen." I printed everything, carefully, methodically. I didn't rush. I didn't panic. I chose a simple suit, nothing loud, nothing apologetic. I wasn't going there to create chaos. I was going there to remove doubt. As I prepared to leave the house that night, I passed the hallway where Ethan's childhood height marks were still penciled into the wall. I ran my hand over them and felt something crack, not painfully, but permanently. I wasn't abandoning my son. I was finally facing the man he had chosen to become. The building was already alive when I arrived. Music pulsed through the walls before I even reached the entrance, bass vibrating through concrete and glass. Laughter spilled into the street, careless and loud, the sound of people who believed tomorrow would never arrive. I stood outside for a moment longer than necessary, not because I was afraid, but because I needed to remember why I was there. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't punishment. This was truth. Inside, the lights were sharp and artificial, flashing across faces flushed with alcohol and confidence. The air smelled like money being burned without thought. I moved through the crowd slowly, deliberately. The folder tucked under my arm like a weight. I was finally ready to sit down. I saw Ethan near the bar almost immediately. He looked comfortable, relaxed, the kind of relax that only comes when you believe you're untouchable. Vanessa stood beside him, laughing, her hand resting casually on his arm, as if she belonged there, as if everything around them was earned. For a brief moment, memory tried to interfere. I saw Ethan at 6 years old, holding my hand in a parking lot, afraid of losing sight of me. I remembered teaching him how to drive, my voice calm even when he stalled the engine. I remembered every excuse I had ever made for him. Then I remembered the note on the table. Gone. Thanks. I walked forward. I asked the DJ to stop the music. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Authority doesn't come from volume. It comes from certainty. The room slowed as the sound cut out, conversations dissolving into confusion. Heads turned, eyes followed me. I said my son's name. Ethan looked up, his expression shifting from annoyance to disbelief. Vanessa's smile faltered. The room went quiet in the way it does when people realize they're about to witness something real. I opened the folder. I handed out copies of bank statements, loan agreements, and messages printed clearly without commentary. I explained calmly how I mortgaged my home, how the money was promised for education, how it was instead spent on cars, parties, and appearances. I didn't insult him. I didn't shout. I didn't beg. The truth doesn't need theatrics. Whispers spread fast. Phones came out. People read. Faces changed. Ethan tried to laugh it off, then tried to shout me down, but his voice cracked under the weight of paper he couldn't erase. Vanessa grabbed a page and tried to dismiss it, then realized too many eyes were already watching. She left quickly, heels striking the floor in uneven rhythm, panic finally louder than confidence. Ethan followed, yelling after me that I was destroying him. I didn't turn around. The weeks that followed were heavy but steady. The courtroom was quieter than I expected. No drama, no spectacle. Just facts arranged carefully, patiently, one after another. Daniel presented everything without emotion, because emotion wasn't required anymore. The judge listened, and then she ruled. Fraud, breach of trust. Restitution ordered. $150,000, triple the original amount. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel joy. What I felt was relief so deep it almost scared me. The kind of relief that comes when something finally ends instead of lingering. Later, Ethan came to my house. He stood on the porch looking smaller than I remembered, older but weaker somehow. He apologized. He cried. He asked me to help him fix it. He asked me to make it go away. And for the first time in my life, I didn't rescue him. I told him I loved him. And then I told him no. I told him accountability was not abandonment. I told him consequences were not cruelty. I told him that being his father did not mean sacrificing myself forever. When I closed the door, it wasn't slammed. It was final. The house feels different now, lighter, quieter in a good way. The bank letters still come, but they no longer carry shame. They carry progress. The walls no longer feel like witnesses to my failure. They feel like mine again. I still think about Ethan. I always will. But love no longer means surrender. It means boundaries. It means truth. And it means choosing yourself when silence would destroy you. If this story resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Remember, standing up for yourself does not make you heartless. It makes you whole. To listen to the next story, click the video on the left. Thank you for watching.